Our next speaker is Lane Janatowski. He is in a very senior position in the government, U.S. Department of Energy. He's Director of Advanced Research Projects Agency and known affectionately as Arpa-E. He has responsibility for oversight and leadership of the agency. Prior to joining Arpa-E, Director Genatowski served as a senior advisor to the Undersecretary of Science at DOE, and before entering government service, he was a managing partner at Dividend Income Advisors, a firm he founded to invest in energy and power industry companies. And before that, he led the power investment banking group at Wells Fargo Securities and held senior investment and managing positions at Jefferies Company, J.P. Morgan, Kidder, Peabody, and Bank of America. He began his career in the energy sector practicing law at Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood, a simple little country firm up in New York City. So thank you so much for joining us, Lane. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for all your help over the years. Thank you so much. Lane, we can't hear you. Lane. Lane, we just can't hear you. Can we try again? No, can't hear you. There's a little green microphone on the screen. If you tap that little icon, Lane, we can't hear you. Lane, would you touch Lane? Lane, please take a look.
You can also call in by the phone number that's on the logon details you received.
One moment, please. We're just having a little technical difficulty. Mr. Janatowski will be right back.
Lane, take a look at the little green icon. There's a series. There's a little video screen, and then there's a little green tiny microphone in there.
No.
There you go.
Wait, I think I got it.
There you go.
Okay.
Thanks, Lane.
Thank you. It was not in the box. It was down at the bottom of the screen. So
I share your pain.
My apologies.
But we're eager to hear from you.
As we like to say, we'd like to think it's worth the wait, but we're not sure. My name is Lane Janatowski, and I'm the director of Arpa-E, which is a division of the Energy Department. My talk to you this morning will be about the enterprise and what we're doing. It'll be in 5 quick parts. We'll summarize the enterprise. We'll tell you what we did last year. We'll tell you what we're doing this year. We'll tell you what we're going to do next year, and we'll tell you about a special project called Scale Up. So at least you know where you're going, and you can tell when I'm close to the end to the thank you part. I've been in the energy department for a couple of years. The first year I was in, I was a special senior advisor under Secretary DeBar, who I've known for about 20 years, and worked on special projects for him. And I was confirmed last July 4th, let's say, and took over ARPA then. So I'm at about 14 months. So I ran off 19, and FY20 is basically all mine, and then 21 we'll have to see. My background is as a investment banker, an investor, and a lawyer. I ran my own fund in terms of utilities and energy, and I was a managing director at JP Morgan and several other institutions on Wall Street. I don't know how much your audience knows about Arpa-E, but there's 150 people, of whom probably I'd say half are scientists that run the programs directly or support the programs, and maybe 100 are scientists qualified, and maybe 50 are administrative. And there's some political leadership in the organization. Senate confirmed appointee, and my principal deputy director was appointed by the secretary. Our goals through the statute are to reduce imports, improve efficiency, and reduce emissions, to ensure that the United States remains technologically in the lead in developing and deploying advanced energy technologies. Quick update on ARPA-E's numbers. We've been out there active for, I'd say, about 10 years. We've provided financing to about 950 projects, of which 330 are currently active. We have invested about $2.5 billion of the taxpayers' money, and we've seen a $5 or $6 billion plus follow-on funding, and about 609 patents. So the follow-on funding, as you all know, in these areas is very lumpy. We just had a big one with QuantumScape, where we were the original financier for them. They pivoted their technology in batteries and just went public 2 weeks ago with a $3.3 billion valuation. A lot of our work goes to other government agencies, about which I will not speak, but we have around 200 to 250 projects that we've worked on with our fellow government employees, some in the military services, and some, as we say, just with other government entities. Our structure is pretty flat. The scientists report to a science director, and the science director reports to me. So there's not a lot of infrastructure. It's meant to be that way. The scientists serve about, it says 3 years of the statute, but practically speaking, they come in and they usually stay for 4 or 5 years. But we always turn them over. Just yesterday, the head scientist decided to step down and take an advisory role. The number 2 scientist in the area stepped up, and one of the program directors stepped into her slot. So we had 3 changes yesterday, and no departures, but we generally average about 3 or 4 departures and replacements of program directors each particular year. As far as what we're working on now, we've got about 40 active programs. Each program has about, some 3, but most of them 10 to 15 projects underneath them. We've got a lot of different technological areas going on: electric generation, electric distribution, efficiency, transportation fuels, pollution abatement, and grid operations. And those are all ongoing. Last year, our budget was $390 million, and we committed $374 million to projects directly. Since the start of this year, which was last October 1, we've announced $250 million in new projects, and we'll be finishing off contracts so that this year we'll have contracts for research with principal investigators that total around $400 million. We have a lot of new programs in 2020. We have a carbon capture and storage program that enables a higher, it envisions models what a grid system would look like of generating portfolio for one with a very high level of renewables. And it'll also address carbon capture, storage, and utilization. We've got a program called Gemini. And again, our program director for that just left to go back to Berkeley. She's a professor of nuclear physics, but that's a twinning program to use digital twins to model on small modular nuclear reactors. And our goal there is a 10 times reduction in O&M costs, which was, as you might imagine, quite a significant amount. We have a program called Perform, where we do a risk alignment and assessment of all generating assets in a particular independent system operator's portfolio. And to give you an example of what that does in the simplest thing, 3 days out, you can't tell if a solar panel is going to generate solar electricity or not for the purposes of actual distribution. 5 minutes before, you can tell pretty much with 100% certainty whether it's going to generate electricity. And we use that to inform the system dispatcher as to the maximum amount and the minimum risk to distributing renewable generation and into the grid and lower down what I call traditional sources of greenhouse gas emitting generators. It's basically just a risk and time function, but it's quite difficult. Another program that's very interesting is called Repair. And this will give you an idea of where we go if you, the breadth of the research that's going on. On the Repair program, it costs about $1 million a mile in a small suburban area to rip up and replace natural gas pipelines. And it's mostly due to excavation, civil engineering. Well, we're working on it. We've designed a program, and the aim of the program is to design a machine, which is called a PIG, P-I-G, to go into the natural gas lines. And we're starting out with low pressure distribution lines, and we'll graduate up to high pressure transmission lines. Go inside and to basically reline it with a depositional material that'll take the place of the iron or steel that's on the outside that may be crumbling or rusting, and do everything from the inside out while the gas is flowing with no interruption in service. So no excavation, no interruption in service, and the savings are somewhere in the neighborhood of $800,000 to $900,000 a mile, or like a 90 or 80% cost reduction in terms of relining and stopping methane leaks. Later on, I'll tell you we've got a methane program and some of our other things. A newer program which we're doing is everybody's concerned about the Valley of Death. The Valley of Death can be papered over with only two things: a good product and money. So we've started a public-private partnership with entities where if you are a prior Arpa-E awardee and you've proven your technology, we're running a program. This year it's $75 million to basically, if you find or we'll help you find a financing partner and an industrial partner to take your scientific discovery to production. That is a big step. Next step, obviously, is of course you've got to sell it to someone who's got a distribution network so it gets out in the field. But we've got scale up, and just yesterday we announced the first two winners. We had $1.3 billion in applications to scale up. The day we went, what was the term? wireless virtual, and we've got 75 million set aside. We originally had 50. We increased it by 25 million. That scale up program we run every year, by the way. That we have appropriation. We've increased it to 75 million from 50. We've asked people if there are certain people that are in a rush, and we've got 2 awardees that were in a rush. One of them is Bridger Photonics, and what they do is they sense and quantify and locate methane leaks in gas systems. Their material is hung underneath a small single propeller airplane, and it flies along and pushes the data down to locate and also quantify the leak. The next program we have is the next program that we have is hang on a second. I can't. I'm on a phone call. I beg your pardon. There was one phone I forgot to dispatch. The next one is a program that is a battery program, and it uses Prussian blue. It's fast charging. Its investors come from the U.S., Switzerland, and ARPA. So it's a multinational project, and they got a larger grant. They needed more money, and they were ready to buy certain machinery immediately. So we provided a grant for them. We asked these people to have commercialization partners, and we asked them to have financial partners, and we'll help them if they don't have them. So the first end of that, the scale up part is done, and we've awarded $25 million to Natron and Bridger Photonics. We've got $50 million left for that program that we'll award in December. And we'll do one of those. It's our intention to do one of those a year when the appropriations are there. Finally, section for 2021, we're going to have an open competition in 2021, which means we take any and all ideas, not ours. They're not focused. Somebody's got an idea out there how balloons will work to hold up buildings, we'll listen to it. So any ideas. Last year we put 2 years ago, we do it every other year. We put $100 million against the program. We had 1,000 applicants, and we selected a couple of dozen. We have our Energy Innovation Summit, which we have every year. This is the 11th one we've had. We had one in 2019 in Denver, and this one we're going to have in Washington. We had 1,600 attendees and 3,000 technologies exhibited. So we let people go there. Pardon me just a minute. I guess in summary, our next year is going to be extremely busy with plenty of opportunity for people to come in with focused programs, with programs for the open, and as exhibitors at the summit, and also as people who might want to come in if they're prior awardees for grants on the scale-up program. So a very busy year. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Lane. And there is a question for you. Al, do you want to share that with Lane now?
Yes, the question is, how does ARPA-E coordinate with the national labs of DOE and with programs such as DOE's Technology Commercialization Fund to ensure that the government's energy technology efforts are synergistic?
Well, first of all, we coordinate with our colleagues in the labs and in the Forrestal building, main DOE, as you would think in any occasion. If a scientist wants to do a program and has an idea that they want to prove something, they'll first go talk to all the other scientists around to ask them what they're doing to make sure they're not duplicating it. Next, there's a program, cross-cutting program, where the managers of all the areas at the DOE sit down on a regular basis and tell one another what their particular areas are doing, so that we try to have no overlap. Quite often we'll start something out with the idea that we'd like one of the applied offices to take it on. When I said there were 229 instances where other government agencies picked up and followed on funding what we were doing, some of those are in the defense establishment or the intelligence establishment, but some of them are just down the block in Forestville, and they'll pick something up. If we're working on something that might be solar, or it might be wind, or whatever, we might get things to a certain point and then literally walk them down the hill and guide them into what I'd call the program or the project office.
Thank you so much, Lane.